In a quiet, picturesque town nestled between rolling hills and a gentle river, there lived a woman named Clara. Clara was known for her kind heart and calming presence, but what most people didn't know was that she carried the weight of a heartbroken soul. Years of loss and disappointment had etched invisible scars on her, scars she hid behind a soft smile and comforting words. One particularly quiet evening, Clara found herself unable to sleep. The walls of her cozy home felt too small, the silence too loud. She wrapped herself in a blanket, slipped on her boots, and stepped out into the crisp night. The town was still, with only the faint rustle of leaves and the soft hum of the distant river breaking the silence. Above her, the stars glittered like tiny shards of hope scattered across a velvety sky. Clara walked aimlessly, her feet leading her toward the hilltop that overlooked the town. It was a place she hadn't visited in years, a place filled with memories of a life she had once dreamed of but had since left behind. When she reached the top, she was greeted by an unexpected sight. There, sitting cross-legged under the vast canopy of stars, was an elderly man. He looked up as Clara approached, his face illuminated by the moonlight. His eyes were warm, filled with an unusual depth that made Clara stop in her tracks. "Couldn't sleep either?" the man asked, his voice low and soothing, like the gentle flow of the river below. Clara hesitated before nodding. The night felt heavy, she admitted, surprised by her own honesty. The man gestured for her to sit. "Sometimes, the night carries the weight we're too afraid to confront during the day," he said. Clara sat down, pulling her blanket tighter around her. For a while, they sat in silence, the stars above them twinkling as if they were listening to their unspoken thoughts. Then the man began to speak. "Do you know the story of the river that runs through this town?" he asked. Clara shook her head. "It wasn't always here," he began. "Long ago, this valley was dry, lifeless. The people here struggled, their crops failing, their spirits breaking. They prayed for rain, for salvation, but the skies remained clear. Until one day, a young woman climbed this very hill and begged the heavens for help. She didn't ask for herself, she asked for her people. She poured her heart out, offering her tears in place of the rain. And the heavens listened. They say the river you hear now is fed not just by natural springs, but by the tears of that woman's love and sacrifice. Her sorrow became the lifeblood of the valley, and her selflessness saved generations." Clara was silent, the story sinking into her like the cool night air. "Why are you telling me this?" she finally asked. The man smiled faintly. "Because sometimes, our pain has a purpose. It doesn't just shape us, it can nourish the world around us, even when we can't see it. The tears we shed in the quiet of the night may be the water that brings life to someone else's tomorrow." Clara felt her chest tighten, a mixture of sadness and hope washing over her. "But what if the pain feels endless?" she whispered. The man looked at her, his gaze steady. "Then let the stars hold it for you tonight. You're not alone, Clara. None of us are." Clara blinked, startled. She hadn't told him her name. Before she could ask, he stood, his movements slow and deliberate. "I'll leave you with the stars," he said. "They have a way of speaking when we're ready to listen." And just like that, he was gone, disappearing into the shadows of the night. Clara sat there for a long time, her gaze fixed on the stars above. She thought about the river, the story, and the stranger who seemed to know her better than she knew herself. For the first time in a long time, she let her tears fall freely, not in despair, but in release. By the time she made her way back home, the weight in her chest had lessened. The stars had done their job, holding her pain so she could finally breathe. Clara's steps felt lighter as she walked back into town. The quiet streets, bathed in the silver glow of the moon, no longer felt suffocating but soothing, like an embrace she hadn't realized she needed. Her thoughts lingered on the stranger, his words circling in her mind like whispers of truth she'd been too afraid to face. As she approached her home, she noticed the river beyond her garden, its gentle flow catching the moonlight. For the first time, she stopped to truly look at it. The sound of the water seemed different now, not just a background melody but a reminder of resilience, of life moving forward no matter the obstacles in its way. That night, Clara climbed into bed, her heart quieter than it had been in years. The stars outside her window seemed to wink at her, as if to say, "We'll be here. Always." And for the first time in a long time, Clara drifted into sleep without the weight of her past pressing against her chest. Weeks passed, and Clara found herself returning to the hilltop. Each visit brought her a new sense of peace. She would sit under the stars, reflecting, releasing, and sometimes even laughing at the memories that no longer felt like chains. The stranger never returned, but his presence lingered, woven into the very fabric of the hill. One evening, while sitting by the riverbank, Clara made a decision. She wanted to share what she had learned, to let others know they weren't alone in their struggles. Inspired by the story of the young woman who had brought life to the valley, Clara began writing. Her words flowed like the river, honest and raw, carrying pieces of her pain and the hope she had found. She wrote about the stars, the hill, the stranger, and the way she had learned to let go. Her stories found their way into the hands of people who needed them. Letters began arriving at her door, messages of gratitude from strangers who felt seen and comforted by her words. Clara realized that, like the river, her journey had the power to nourish others. Years later, Clara stood on the hill once more, now a place of solace for many in the town. Benches dotted the area, and a plaque at the top told the story of the young woman whose tears had fed the valley's life-giving river. Clara's own story had become part of the town's legacy, a reminder that even in the darkest nights, the stars are always there to guide us. As Clara looked up at the sky, she whispered a quiet "thank you" to the stranger who had reminded her of her own strength. And beneath the vast canopy of stars, she finally understood, healing wasn't about forgetting the pain, it was about transforming it into something beautiful. And so, under the watchful gaze of the stars, Clara smiled, knowing she had found her peace. Clara's life became a testament to the power of transformation. Her words, her resilience, and her journey inspired countless people in and beyond her town. What started as personal healing turned into a ripple effect, touching lives in ways she never imagined. One day, as Clara walked through the town square, she noticed a gathering of people at the library. Inside, there was an exhibit dedicated to the stories that had shaped the community, including hers. A young girl, no more than 10, stood by a display holding one of Clara's books. "This story," the girl said to her mother, "it's about a woman who found hope when everything seemed lost." Clara's heart swelled. She stepped closer, kneeling beside the girl. "It is," she said softly. "And do you know what's amazing? That hope is inside all of us. Even on the hardest days." The girl looked at her with wide, curious eyes. "Even me?" Clara smiled warmly. "Especially you." The mother nodded, her eyes glistening with gratitude. "Your story gave us strength when we needed it most." "Thank you." Clara left the library with a renewed sense of purpose. She realized that her journey was never truly hers alone, it was a thread in the tapestry of human experience, proof that every story has the potential to uplift and heal. That evening, she returned to the hill one last time. She sat beneath the stars, the river murmuring in the distance, and closed her eyes. The memories of her struggles no longer felt heavy. They had transformed into a wellspring of gratitude. As the wind carried the scent of wildflowers and the stars shone brighter than ever, Clara whispered into the night, "To those who are still searching for their light, keep going. The stars are always with you, just as they were with me." And as the river flowed steadily, Clara felt a quiet joy, a life once burdened by pain had bloomed into a beacon of hope for others.